That was nice. You should respond for a change.
Well, that showed up, we must really nuts. Welcome, sir. Well, it's a big room just for you. We wanted to make sure you were comfortable.
Choice of seat.
Well, these are what you guys. So like, wait a second. Okay.
Yeah.
Good. All right. Thank you, Sarah. Well, welcome everybody. It is just past the top of the hour, so I will call to order the special meeting of Tuesday, April 15, 2023. Please join me for a flag. Pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
The city and borough of Zippin would like to respectfully acknowledge the traditional first people of Chieftown for the gratitude we receive on the day on. Sarah, roll call please.
Mayor Eichenberg,
Present.
Mr. Mulder, Ms. Duncan. Here. Mr. Jecta,
Here.
Mr. Christensen,
Here.
Mr. Pike,
Here.
and Ms. Carlton. Here.
Tell you what, I was really excited when the flags were that way when I just stood up, because I hadn't looked around to see where they were. So, gotta have it. Any correspondence or agenda changes this evening? Brings you to heard this public participation for any item off of tonight's agenda, that's what you can see 3 minutes. See, this is our first order of business. Tonight we are gathered for our annual evaluations for our municipal administrator and our municipal director. Start this evening with our municipal administrator, John Leach. He has requested that his evaluation be held public as it is his right. So somebody would be gathering this evening to go over comments for Leach. I've done this evaluation process one of 2 ways. Either we just start and go from one end of the round, or start out if you're passionate about that, we can do it that way as well. I thought about going around the room and I saw a new guy and a new gal, and I was like, well, I put both of them on the spot then. So if someone wants to start, that's great. Or if we want to go around the room and let John know our comments, you know, are good or bad, or room for improvement, or anything that we might have for him. But there is on the spot. Go ahead.
I'll go.
Okay.
I'll go. Bring this. I did not pull up these today. You're seeing like meetings. For I think I'm doing that same job compared to what was just started. We managed help and manage emergency, national emergency situations, seconds of the organized birthday parties, and that helped this conference. I believe he's also worked closely with Pride, in many ways that were needed. So they helped bring down that burden as far as that administration. I know that he's had difficulties, and many challenges. Some people want to certain things, they see stuff from people because there's always things that. And that's kind of like an area for improvement. You're doing great. I think the staff, majority of the staff expects you to do first. However, I've noticed you kind of get worked up when like you're feeling impacted by members of the community, and I think that's understandable. If I was in your position, I would be, and that's something I have to learn people do, because they get those really comments, those things come out. And in situations up for just encourage you to continue your journey. Not ignore people, let that frustration go, have confidence. You want to know you know. You need to so that validation. I have confidence in your ability to handle emergencies. I have confidence in your ability to handle staff. Especially when it comes to kind of restructure, find efficiencies, find people, this people's skills and skill levels, and try to push to the top of the data. You're mindful of expenses, extremely mindful of expenses. I really like your focus on asset management. We haven't really had that, and that's just the stress starting its legs off of it. Foremost, I believe that you have best interest in the security value. And I trust your integrity. Are there other things that there are for improvement? I'm sure there are. And maybe when people kind of say things out, but I think you're doing this job. I think you are the very we have. I'm very confident in you.
Yeah, I would actually very closely echo what Kevin was saying. I think it's been interesting that John's attacks and problems, I don't think we really knew were problems that were. Asset management comes into mind. We kind of knew we had issues there, but we didn't have a name for it. And it's not, and good to see John bringing things up that obviously weren't really on my radar, that like, oh, this should have been. So that's a definite plus. And well, I think he's been a quite good administrator for us. It's interesting. I was thinking about this and how to say it. As far as room for improvement, I'm not sure it is just John does some things different. Why would do it? John is extremely detail oriented, which is nice. But sometimes I think that gets him into the job a little bit. Sometimes sweating the small stuff winds up taking up a lot of bandwidth, if that makes sense. And I know that John is very much, we're going to go by the book and whatever the laws, whatever the ordinances say to the letter with as little interpretation as possible. And again, I was thinking, I'm not sure that's entirely the best approach all the time, but then again, that just might be me and not necessarily somebody else. And I also think that by doing that, John's kept us out of trouble more than once. So I'm not sure if that's an actual, you could do it better, but I sometimes think that, some of the small stuff is not always productive. But then again, I also know that keeps things running. So I think I've got a lot of respect for John. I enjoy working with him. And it's talking about something like that. It's exciting. It's true. And I think it's important to realize that the shine of the new administrator is long gone. Yet I think John's relationship with the community and the assembly is still amazingly good. I mean, it's really rare for somebody to be in his position for as long as he has, and not have a significant percentage of the population mad at him. And obviously, I think you could be a combination of Jesus and Gandhi, and still you have a bunch of people mad at you. But it's amazing how small that is, in all honesty. So it kind of feels like he's still new, but he's not on that front. So again, I have full confidence in John as administrator, and hope to say some more things next year.
Chris?
truthfully, I haven't had that much time, honestly, to reflect on all this, so I was actually just writing notes down now. You know, when I ran for assembly, one of the reasons I wanted to get on this assembly council, because even as a citizen, I was impressed with the job he was doing, and ever since getting on the assembly, my impression hasn't changed. I've been really happy with the way John handles things and the way they're going. I've also been, being on the assembly, something I've always been impressed by is how much handles difficult situations. Frustrating public or something that's, putting the city under fire, and John always addresses it, in my mind, extremely well. I'm not nearly as cool-headed or politically correct as he is, so I've always been really impressed with how he can handle difficult situations. He handles certain things differently than I would, but I think every time that he does, it's for the best. I might handle something a little more aggressively, bullheaded, and could potentially get the city in trouble, where John takes a more cautious route and follows the book. And in the end, I think it's the safest, keeping us, the city, out of lawsuits and out of other people's crosshairs. So, yeah, I've just been really impressed with John, still, and really want to see him stay around.
I can go. Thank you. So I think, leadership is a tricky thing, and it takes a lot of skill to bring that to fruition. One of those skills that you have to have is another one is vision. You have to be able to and you have to see the big picture, so that you know what it is we're all trying to accomplish. John brings us to this body, and I think our community is better because we have so I think that's what important. So, and so I was doing the intake, as the Southern Arizona School Department, and that a great deal of and to go and also supported, but also I agree about the implementation. Football. They can see how to do it well. So I think that's something that I've observed over time with leaders. Sometimes you have to let people, you have to be willing to let other people do less well. See how. It's also that's one. I talk about look for things to do. That's it. Maybe too much on your. Also been impressed that the community seemed quite accommodating to you and how you says.
Changing there. John, 4 months. Community. I see a lot to be this. I appreciate your leadership. So just doing 8 pages of work given to guide us through the breadth of what you do. Be here. have. City. Um, I appreciate people you manage to keep it. I get that. Daily, weekly, yearly is just a huge stuff. Go well and your character, vision, leadership, recording, communication, written, verbal, all of that. It's well executed to a level of detail. I appreciate. But yes, it came with that shows me with an example is very valuable reading, giving them. It's a valuable space. Consistent is also something to promote, and that being by the book, in my opinion, is good for an administrator, maybe simply gets to have a little less than that. Right thing. Interpret that well. Well structured for 20-year job. So thank you for what you do and continue.
So I'll go through the tool which was provided to us, and then I think I have larger questions related to valuation and the job description. So I'll go first with what was provided to us. So when it comes to human resources development, this came a couple of meetings ago. And vacancy rates, if we compare that to John came on board, actually. And I really trust him to build the team that he needs to carry out his duties within the administration. So I think that, you know, I don't have a lot to add to it other than I trust him to go through and administer the policies when it comes to recruiting, retention. I think we asked him, do you need more money? And he said, I have a plan. And so that was enough for me to say, okay, keep doing that. When it comes to leadership, I to know that you're very orderly, which I think has come out in description of town hall, so you love the process, you love procedures, you always trying to update those, and make sure that they're standard and within this. I think that helps you set expectations for those who report to you, and it should trickle down to those who are reporting up the structure. So I think that is a helpful tool. The rigidity, I think. We might have heard something from Tor around the lines that there could be a little bit of flexibility just based off of people's abilities to thrive within a position. So just acknowledgement that there are people who will do well under that system, and there are others that need to you need to go at it from a little bit of a different perspective. And I think you have the ability to be flexible on that. What I wanted to know for this year was work on the strategic plan. So that was something that you had talked about. Since I remember coming on assembly, is that you wanted a guide to ensure that you were fulfilling the expectations of the community, and so you spent a lot of time. So that was a team, that's not you, but I know that you spearheaded and said, we're going to get this passed so that we have a working document to make sure that everything that we're spending money on or time towards, it will be outlined in the strategic plan. And I think that's a really strong document that has helped guide us since we passed it in the fall. When it comes to job organization, I just wanted to know for the record that I'm so glad that you took a vacation and you are absolutely unavailable to us. That's the way that it should be. And so I think that this is kind of in line with some of the comment. You had to build your team. And I think this is the year that I see you actually trusting your team and going off the grid, which I know for you is really hard to do. So I do applaud that. I've seen growth in that area, and I hope you enjoyed the heck out of your vacation because you do deserve it. You put a lot of time into this position. When it comes to planning, I just wanted to note how supportive I am of the risk analysis. I think that was an important direction to go. And I think it has also reframed and then a reminder to me as I'm looking at things that I need to keep an eye on that and come at it. So that was introduced to me regularly bringing the assessment table that is healthy for the decision. When it comes to written communication, and so this I also heard from others, but I notice when something is not perfect that is very bothersome to you. So again, that attention to detail and putting time and effort to make sure that it is a standard that is acceptable to you. I think I'm highlighting that because that has been so rare that I've seen instances in the packets where something needs to be updated because a phone number was off. So I think that speaks to overall, when we're coming together twice a month and we have sometimes upwards of 600 pages, that very rarely we have something that needs to be corrected, which speaks to that level of detail that goes into it, the preparation that is expected for it. So I actually thought that was a strong thing that I wanted to point out. It shows that things are reviewed, they're edited, and that when you publish it, you know, it's going into a public space and you don't want there to be errors, and we're not finding those on this. I think that's sort of communication, not just of you, but of your team and how you guys work together to assemble those. And I just wanted to kind of reframe the conversation. I'm not quite sure how to do this, so I might need to see us talk a little bit. But I wanted to go into community relations and community reputation, not with examples or an overview of the year, but based off of the documents that were included in the packet. So your job description, setting goals for the upcoming year. I remember I brought up the goals, and so I brought it up last year because in my position, we sit there and go line by line, job description says this, are you doing this? And we kind of go through that assessment, but then we set goals for this upcoming year. I cannot remember how does that work at the state. 7 people who come together and we discuss this once, and this is the meeting where we do that. Do we not set goals? And I guess I was trying to sum up, and I think I've heard 2 possibly listed, and I would have a 3rd one. How do
Done that app. Yeah, almost get that section. Sets. Goals for the year, because we've done that. But then that would be within the within the guidelines of the. So I think that would be a separate section. The assembly be together.
okay. And we've never done that before. I think what I'm saying is, can we set that up? Because I know we haven't.
Well, the assembly has done it before. Gary Paxton used it to.
Yeah, I'm just not familiar because we haven't done this. We would come together for this one meeting. So is that a request that I could put on the table and say maybe we could do a work session where we go through the job description, we set goals for the coming year, and would that be the appropriate place to do that? Okay. So maybe I'll save the rest of this feedback because I did have goals that I wanted to stress. And I think not having goals, thought maybe we have to relate it back to the strategic plan and then. But this might not be the appropriate avenue or time, as long as there is a discussion. This is super important.
So do you like goals to do for you, like combining with it?
Based off of the feedback, so I'll use yours as an example. So goal number 1 that I wrote down came from you, and it was, how do we support John? Because we've heard that comment previously, like your reactions to the community when you get upset. How do we support him other than saying you need to change this and address it? Because we said that last year too. Is there a way that we could uphold our administrator and say, you may not have the tools or the skills, but we're going to make sure that you do. We're going to actually set this as a goal, and we're going to check in next year when we evaluate. Because right now, I mean, honestly, if you look at the ordinance that declared it and you look at the evaluation as it stands, this is very basic. When I look at strategic goal number 2, there's nothing in here, but that's the 5-year direction that we set forward. And I do think, you know, John would have to come forward and say, I need help in this area. That's really difficult for us to put on the employee to do. I think us as the body who are going to make comments and say, I can see an area where you can improve here or here. We need to also put our money where our mouth is. So if we want to see progress and improvement, we set an expectation. This is a goal. Let's check in on it. And if you need support because you don't have the tools, we'll provide it, and here's how. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, so the goal number 1 that I heard was the reactions and the comments and kind of being able to take feedback. That's 1. Goal number 2, I think it was something of his delegation, this attention to detail, and then flexibility was a comment. Those aren't goals at this point in time. Those are just comments that I heard. And I guess I'm just thinking back to last year, I remember similar comments. And so I just want to provide more support because I think this is the body that is supposed to do that for our 2 top level people. So for the work session, my goal would be that we update the description and we set expectations through goals for this upcoming year. But I know we haven't done that previously, so I was a little bit confused what that process would look like. So I'm open to further discuss, but.
Yeah, and if I would have had a heads up, I could have given you a little bit more on this. If according to code, if we are going to update the description of his job, that needs to happen tonight, as part of the performance evaluation. However, everything else, I hesitate to give you a simple answer on because it's new to me as well.
Yeah, and I saw that in 88-363, I kind of highlighted that and I thought this is, but we hadn't done it previously. So I thought maybe we just don't need to review that in detail and say, is this still what we want to hold our administrator and our attorney to? And my thoughts are you should always be revising, updating, and best practice supporting the leads of your organization. So I wanted to have a further discussion around that, and I apologize, Stephen, for not giving you that heads up.
Yeah, I feel bad not having an answer for you as well. I haven't had time, and I want to make sure that we're procedurally correct, but we can still accomplish your goals because they're great goals. You know, you give someone a task and you should follow up and give them the tools to accomplish it as opposed to simply lip service. I don't have anything better for you right now, unfortunately, but we can figure that out.
And I didn't even mention what my goal was, but I think I would frame it around supporting outreach and understanding of our diverse community. I think that support behind that would be strategic goal number 2. And I, of course, went back to the budget proposals that came through and sort of was trying to get a feel for whether or not that speaks in the same way to me as it reads. And I know that there are different ways to interpret that, but I think in my position, it's my job to speak to those issues. And so you guys can see what my goal was. My goal was during the budget period to basically put in that we would get training so that he reports to us. We set the tone of the city. And so that was something that was approved as part of that budget. And I thank all of you for being supportive of that because I think that's important. Within that though, I was also thinking about John and the leadership that we demand as far as outreach in that area. And I think that John could use the support, not just me saying this needs to be worked out. So again, my comments for John, what a year. I think I tried to highlight and uplift the things that I think went really well. And I would love to set goals because I think I'm just thinking about myself. So ours is on fiscal year. So my evaluation happens in October. My supervisor reached out to me 2 weeks ago and said, here are the goals you set for yourself. Where are you at on this? And so it's holding me accountable, which made me realize how helpful that is. That's a direction that I go, and I apologize for excluding you to keep looking this direction. But I think that's a powerful tool. And I know it's hard. So John has discussed the fact that it's not easy having 7 supervisors. And of course, we have probably all of our individual goals that we would have for John And so I think that we have to have this in a forum where we can discuss and figure out, am I way out in left field here saying, goal number 3 would be this. We would have to revise that, get that in line, and like I said, put the support behind it. So I have a lot of thoughts on this, and again, I apologize, Stephen, I know the first 2 years were kind of how I understood things to be, but I felt like I would be remiss if I didn't, go into the administrator's reporting document or the job description and they did this need updating. Or we are stating goals at the table, but it's the expectation that he will hear it and enact it, and we don't have to check in on it. I think it's more supportive if we actually provide him everything to do so. So,
Reading everything I can come up with right now to make sure that once tonight, so that you right now. So I'm trying to listen to you because your comments are great while digging through this, and I put it in this.
Like, do you want to do something?
I think I'm done commenting for the moment, and so, yeah, I'm trying to figure out how do we do this differently from the last 2 years, and I don't want to do something outside of this.
Yeah, these are good things for the administrator. Yeah, I think, like my comment was pretty general. I think it's be fair to John, we're going to be pretty specific on what we're asking him to do. If we're, so my expectation of right now is we're approving that he's doing a good job. Start, I think that's what I'm hearing. But then I'm hearing from you, you like to see some changes, so I don't know. I think Steve was kind of grabbing, well, this is something we do right now.
So, and I'm also playing in my head, like, we have an established process that the administrator was prepared for. Is this something that we do next year, that we sit down and we have a work session to prepare a new evaluation criteria for the upcoming year? And I don't know the answer to that question, because it seems perhaps unfair to modify it as the assembly's already gone through a process and the administrator is expecting a certain process. That's another thought that I'm going through this.
Yeah, I think I would tend to agree with Stephen. I think the points that Crystal makes, you're making are good, like you want to see you can, help him given the tools. But particularly, it feels like we have I mean, maybe give them maybe a thumbs up or down or rate, whatever have you. Then we'll kind of, I guess I wasn't prepared either, like, just trying to decide. I think that maybe we begin a process doing these, looking toward changing process next year. I think it would be fair to ask, just say, you're good, but we're gonna have another work back in 2 weeks.
If I can, I don't know that I see it that way, and here's why. I think we go through this evaluation process, and then the outcome from this is a conversation with John about over the years, right? I think that's what we're talking about. Okay. So I don't think we're talking about, well, in this process, adding a step after this process that takes what we count here and provides guidance and for us to know what's on. Has to be a conversation with John and Brian. So because they mean we can't set the goal for them, we need them to be part of that process. But I think that is the step for me in this process. That's kind of what I'm hearing, and I'm in support of that. We're going to change the whole process, yeah, we can. It's the process that we're functioning under at the moment. But if what we want to do is take what we come up with here and turn it into an actual thing, as your guidance says, the goals that we see for him, for the seat is for our representative for the rest of the city as well. So, like, what is the goal? Where we're going here? based upon what we have says. And this is gonna be negative, this has to be, how does John take this and go forward? And what we have. So, what we aim for, what training does it need, you know? That's what I'm hearing, that's what I think.
And I think you said a very key word there for we set goals for what is the outcome tonight. I don't want anything new to come out of this next process. It didn't come out tonight. This is the forum for that. I know Sarah's been listening intently and Brian has as well. Brian, all in you is the fields we're calling. So hopefully we'll be able to weigh in on this process that we understand it all need a little more help going forward.
And this, my, sorry,
No, the theaters.
I'm okay with like reviewing goals, but I think I'm just confused as to what goals as far as tasks we would like him to accomplish for the community or goals for personal improvement. I think they are different forms of that. I don't know.
Those two feel different. I think we're supporting the individual who is in the administrator position, right, in our strategic plan, help shape the movement of the organization goals. Does that kind of sum it up, that we're not saying, let's ignore strategic initiative two? That's already been passed by us. I think this is saying if our expectation is that, for example, going back to yours, the reactions and feedback and response to the community, how do we provide support to do that? So I want to make sure it's not feeling derogatory. Again, we started off with my remarks, I was upholding our administrator saying, did great on this, this, and this. As an individual, I know I have room to grow. And I know that the six of us all have room to grow too, but we don't report to one another. We supervise two individuals who are being evaluated tonight. And so again, I went to the ordinance and I read through the documents and it says that if necessary, the update happens here. So I know we haven't done that. And again, I apologize for not putting you guys on notice of my intent tonight, but I think this is a healthy discussion. I don't want John to feel like this is because of deficient behavior. I'm not at all saying that. I'm sure that that's on public. Again, go back to my comments. I think he made a lot of really positive movements. I think we as a body can better support him. And we know it's to the top and we are the top. So I think we need some expectations for ourselves. And I think we support, for example, the goal that I came up with setting aside that 20,000. So we participate, apply for it, and become a part of that cohort. That's one example of where I think we need to hold ourselves accountable and hold those below us accountable. So that's the framework that I'm operating within. And just because I kind of cut it off, I want to make sure that I go over my goal. I sort of listed it out, but I don't. If our expectation is that we provide him everything and nothing new comes up, then I better go into detail. I only have one example. I love this strategic plan. I think goal number 2 is really the meat of my passion points. So strategic goal number 2, I look back to all of the financial requests that came to us, and we know the process, right? They sit around a conference table and they kind of hash it out and they say, we're going to support this one this year, we're not going to support that one. I kind of wanted to get a feel for how the interpretation within city leadership was going with respect to that goal. And I looked at the folder that came forward. Of course, we know that we were 2 of those. The other 2 that weren't supported were a request for FTE. We always know services can be improved if you provide more people to provide those services. But I think what I was looking for was anything as it relates to marginalized or underrepresented communities, how we could take that gap and meet it and sort of develop those relationships where they're non-existent. And I know I bring this up a lot, and I bring it up because it's important. I see it and I can speak to it, and so that's why I do. So training, when I'm thinking about goals, when I'm thinking about training and ways that we can support people in leadership, I think even for us as a body, better understanding unconscious bias, privilege, cross-cultural communication, systemic oppression, and then even ordinances, how to review, revise, and recommend ordinances that fairly affect communities equally, you know? So that would kind of be the language around goal number 3. And again, I didn't want to go into detail because it sounds like a work session would be an appropriate space to do that, but I don't want to come out and kind of surprise anybody with that. That's kind of the area that I wanted to support John in this upcoming year, growth in that area. And it's not because he is efficient or not doing that. I just know that he could better serve the public if we provide him tools, skills, and knowledge to do so. That's where I'm coming from. I'm trying to be very positive and I don't want it to be proof by itself. It's just a new conversation because the last time all we did was sort of go through the list, and I did that this time, but I think that I know that I am better as an employee because I have goals to work towards and I have the support from my supervisor to do that. I'm just trying to relay that to John and Brian as well. So
Okay, I understand that. What I'm understanding is, you would like the city to go in the direction of making some of these kind of changes like outreach and possible ordinances and find if there's any that can be changed or not, whether we can or can't, or what have you. And you're hoping John will be able to, you're hoping that we will, as an assembly, ask John to get future work to do that.
I think that we directly impact the strategic goals. They were brought forward, we support them. I think within that, our support goes to leadership to say, okay, we've adopted these, show us how you are upholding and growing in these areas because this is important to us as a city. I also look at the job description. The last time that it was updated was September 2010. We're now in the year 2023. So again, I don't think it's harmful to look at a job description and say, is this relevant, progressive, and where we need to be as a city? So I don't think that's out of the line to say every now and then we need to just look at it. So again, I don't see anything negative about this. And I feel like people are feeling that it might be. It's not. Updating a job description so that it reflects where we're at as a community, that's stellar. Saying that we're going to set goals that kind of amplify the strategic goals that we unanimously approved, I think that's a positive direction too. So just want to make sure that I see an evaluation as a tool to offer feedback, positive, negative, but also give direction and support in kind of growing as a person.
I understand that. I agree. I mean, all your points are valid. I just see this is something that it would be important that if it's not tonight, but at every board session, give a really specific item. Because what you're saying is new to a lot of people. I'm trying to learn and understand, and I kind of continue, but when this, we gotta be fair to, so he knows, just as you said, be very specific and very, like, we gotta give him specific direction on what to do, otherwise, you understand what I mean?
I really do, but in fairness, all of these documents were in our packet, so I didn't need to pull the rug out from under us, but I think that part of our job as an assembly member is to go through and say, does this still read how it needs to? So that's critical of us as a body, definitely us. I'm including myself in that, and so I'm just thinking all of us report to someone, or we have previously, so we have that experience of when it worked well for us and when it didn't. And I think that we even did develop guidelines, so it's not just fill in the box when they come here. Maybe this is a new way to rethink it, but I don't think it's an ordinance where it's asking, again, the ordinance says that if you update the job description, it's here during this meeting. So I didn't need to I'm not creating anything new. I'm just asking us to go a direction. And again, I don't have the experience either. I've been through 2 of these. This is my 3rd one, but I want this to be impactful because I think I felt last year that I brought up the concerns that I had, but there was go to it. There was no support. There was nothing behind it saying, here's how we will support you in going this direction. Because again, goal number 2, and I tried to summarize them, and I apologize if I didn't get it right, but that's come up with. How are we providing additional support so that if he needs help addressing it, that he has it from the people that are expecting?
Actually, just trying to be clear and understand, because you're talking about now, sounds like since we were that being involved, that anything that involves code change or overhaul code changes would be the purview of this entire system. The government policy, but I think that's I can see that as a. You need training needs to happen. You do that. Because this is just so many people, we need to know what is a good idea, what we can and cannot do, and things like that would be, not just Jonathan, but things like that would be.
I think we can continue to debate on what we covered in the meeting. I will do my best to get that meeting on the books. And do you have anything else on? Or,
Oh, yeah. We're going into overall policy thing, assembly thing, and it's not necessarily. John, it's not a part of the evaluation of John. I mean, if we're saying that John needs to work on his community relations and that's one thing. Or that he's not being sent, he's not being aware of pressures and things, or the members of the populace that are not, that don't. That have historical issues, I don't know details. And if we're saying, okay, we want you to become better educated on this, we'll help you do that, that's within a view of itself, the evaluation. But if we're saying we want the city policy to be changed on, that's outside of this, that's outside of the evaluation. That is overall policy, and that's our job. I think John's done a pretty good job. We give him marching orders, he doesn't even like it. But if we're saying that he's not being as effective as an administrator because he's not either aware or sensitive to these issues, some of these issues, that's a little different. I mean, that one has a place in an evaluation, the other one is. I'm not sure that we making changes to the administrator's job description is close to that. And it's more like what else to do is that, we're gonna say this is our policy and you've got to implement it. If we're saying that John is not as effective as he could be because of these, they need some extra training, I understand that, it's a very different thing. And saying, we're gonna change our budget cycle. But as far as, if we're upset about what he brought forward in the budget or what had to be added. To a certain extent, we can be upset about that and say, no, we like different. But that's gonna always be judgment calls. What he brings forward, built into the budget and what he doesn't. And it doesn't matter who's saying this. So it sounds like we're talking about overall policy when the goal here tonight is to determine if John needs to work on something or what he's about. So I'm getting a little confused as we keep going into areas that I don't think are part of the evaluation process.
To speak to that, I think both of those are functions that fall within our duties here, and I'm not trying to go astray. So if we want to pull it back to the evaluation itself, I think I spoke to that. I didn't need to use that confusing example of the budget cycle, but I think that just speaks to growth starts at the top, and we need to support those who we expect to carry out the strategic plan. So I was just using that as an example. I think I've stayed on topic as far as the evaluation itself. I also think if you want to separate those two, I think we need to work on both. I'm not trying to do them both at the same time. I came here to evaluate and offer and set up goals and expectations for this coming year. That would be my goal. And so if I need to backtrack and try to stay within that, I'm happy to. But again, your words were important. There are two distinct categories, and I think our role as an assembly is to address both of those. They don't have to happen at the same time. I just know the time that I've been on the assembly, it hasn't felt like there's been an appropriate time to bring this up after the fact. This is something that we do once a year. And then I just want to play devil's advocate. So if I go into John's office, close the door and say, I really have concerns and I want to discuss this area. In fairness, he's gonna say, yeah, but there are 6 other people that I haven't heard that feedback from. So I can't just jump on board and say, okay, I'm gonna carry out what one of my supervisors said. That's a really hard position for him to be in. If we discuss the goals at length, like we did and come up with, for example, 3, I think that he has the buy-in of the body and not an individual, and certainly not 7 individuals who have their understanding of where they want that position to grow in this coming year. So I think that's why we have to do it publicly. I don't know the appropriate forum. Tonight felt appropriate, but I know that I'm taking us in a direction that we haven't gone previously. And I appreciate you guys bearing with me as I'm confused through this process, but I think it's an important conversation to have.
Yeah, I definitely understand that tonight we do need to set a meeting to talk about goals in the future. I'll work with city staff, Chris, I'll work with you, yourself as well in order to get that on the books appropriate. So I've been coming through again. I want to make sure that this opportunity doesn't pass. I really don't want to see us find something later that precludes something yet, and I don't think that goals would. Just want to make sure that we're leaving here tonight on solid footing. Crystal, anything else on yours? Or you still have the floor?
And I just want to thank all of you for being patient. To really hold to talks here and serious confused. I'm sure because I don't like their goals, so they want to set up a point in time and like we said, we do it once a year and then we don't come back. I know that I've benefited by having goals, and so I think we're going to set them up for even more success when we can better support them. Thank you so much tonight for that.
Thank you. John, I'm gonna work through my comments, I'm still trying to get through this other one as well, but I'm gonna try to refocus on what I have here for you. And I have some things for the assembly as well about John, because I get to see John specifically in a role at conferences that not everyone else does. So that's, I think John knows patient. I don't think the assembly is to see that. Also, John, I'm impressed with your growth in your position. You do continue to grow, which shows me that not only do you want to grow for yourself, but you want to grow for the municipality. You don't satisfy be stagnant, and the status quo doesn't. Status quo. So I'm excited to see continued growth. I think others in your position, having been here, this is with them. Sit on what they've accomplished and continue to ride. I don't think that is the person that you are, nor the direction you. Once a fire gets put out, looking for fires, swear to find. And it's commonly said in the municipality that you're getting it proactively. Sure. I also appreciate your role or your respect for the role of the mayor. Whether I'm sitting in that seat or whether someone else is sitting in that seat, I know that you understand the elected importance of this role, and that you constantly use that as a sounding board and feedback to ensure that what the mayor understands as the public's will is the direction that you're heading as well. So I do appreciate your utter respect for the role of the mayor, how you. I don't want to say it's a peer type role, but in a way it almost is like a peer type role. And you continue to use that to strengthen your positions. I'd love to see and want to see continue to bring all of their members in on the team. I want you to continue to find the person who might be struggling, and I don't have any examples of this. To continue to uplift that person, as well. I think you've done a great job of team building and brought people on board, who want to be part of the team, and making sure that everyone continues to grow as an organization. As commonly been said, that you're as strong as the weakest link, or everybody has to say amongst those. If we do have any of those, seeking them out and continuing to ensure that they have the tools, just as welcome as anybody else here. On conferences, I genuinely think this comes from multiple years of experience, going to conferences with administrators, without administrators. That John is an absolute champion at. The reason being, number one, for some reason, every coachee knows every coachee who knows every coachee. So no matter what room we're in, he always finds somebody that, oh, well, you knew so and so and so and so and so. And then all of a sudden, we've got a big table around us because they all know everybody. But John has a way about him so to conversations where he to build relationships with people to the point where some people that we previously didn't even know their contact info is now on speed dial, so that we can call up. Hey, what do you think of the chances of actually getting this grant, or what do you think of the effectiveness of this on? So John has completely changed my view of conferences, because he has become effective. Not become, he's always been effective at those conferences and making the networking part, which I often wasn't sure of, genuinely valuable to the municipality. That's awesome. He's also a much better icebreaker than I am, so I think we make a really good team when we go to those. Because once I'm in, I can kind of have a conversation. But he's really good at getting this. I just know that while he's not necessarily right in your purview at those times, he is doing quite an outstanding job. One thing, and this will probably come up in the goal setting as well, but I've spoken to this for an area I think we need to put some more time, energy, and effort into going forward. And to me, I understand right now that the nation is going through a recruiting hardship. It's very hard to find employees, and Sitka, unfortunately, is no different than that. But I'd like to take a little more focus and see, why are we struggling with retention? Is there something going on that we can change, that we can do better in order to retain the people we already have? Because people are our number one asset. People, none of anything happens in it. We absolutely have to do everything we can to retain those that are currently with us. And then recruiting new. Is there something else we can do? I don't know, but I think without the people, I think we become a handicapped organization. I don't want to see that going forward. So if there was an area that, John, I would like you to focus on in the next little bit, it would be just how do we get ourselves back up to full strength? How do we get our numbers back to where they need? Because that also goes to burnout. We're in the fire departments that they're not necessarily happy about working all the overtimes when they're short staffed. So burnout leads to employee retention issues as well. So getting the full staff is going to get us on a much stronger footing. And then I'll just close with a statement, a sentence. And John, when I say this, I genuinely believe it. I also believe that a vast majority of the community believes this as well, and that is that the city is genuinely better off for having you here. And I think that will continue in the future. And I think that when people look back on their tenure here, that they are going to believe that the city is genuinely better off. So I thank you for your time, and would then open up the floor, John, if you had any comments for the assembly or anything.
Thanks, Mayor, and everyone. I do just have some brief comments. So Thank you for the comments and the constructive feedback. I'd just like to simply reiterate to the assembly and the citizens that 3 years ago I took this job and I continue to do this job because I'm committed to the citizens, my staff, and the success of this city. I always strive to approach every day's work with my personal values of service, honesty, and respect. And I understand, I know that at some point I will disappoint you or some of the citizens, but that's because I'm a human being. Just understand that I do what I do, trying to balance and honor our code, our charter, our strategic plan, and the desires of the community members. And that's no easy task, and it's nearly impossible to get absolutely everything right or to make everyone happy 100% of the time. All said, I appreciate the opportunity to serve, and I'm looking forward to continued service to this great city.
Sure, sweet, I also appreciate that, and more of that in the future. So at this point, in the past, the assembly has considered, rates of pay as well as benefits. The assembly also needs to deliberate, satisfactory at this point. All right, so I will be calling you, but those were the historically used, terms, satisfactory.
I disagree. I think there was a deviation historically using a larger scale a few years ago. And when I first came on board, there was a scale of excellence for a up and down scale. And then a few years into my tenure here, one of the assemblies decided that it was satisfactory. Last year we went back to the scale. You may recall that over time. Exemplary ratings. That's my history.
Thank you for that, that is helpful. I should have reached out. So this is, yeah, then the assembly discuss. Increase in pay and benefits and stuff. As per contract, there is, or as per policy, there's a 1.5% pay increase built in to the contract. So anybody has any extra.
Say that we should at the very least match it to give everybody else. Exactly what the percent was. It is, I think, saw some very decent hikes, and I mean, we should at the very least try and come close to the level of inflation. And 1.5% is not.
It does not, correct, and in the presentation I have to leave the circuit. 1.5% increase those goals. John, you're welcome to jump in and correct me if you like, but that's what I understood.
I would like to add to this. This is a difficult place to be because I'm sensitive to the effects of a rising cost of government on the citizen. And I'm okay. I'll put it that way. I'm always going to keep my eye on losing pay to employees that I supervise and losing pay to the very depth of the economy. But that's necessarily a linear relationship at some point we start to level off. So I'm appreciative of anything, like we just don't feel any need to look for large increases over what that will be.
Or of course, someone's gonna look at that.
This kind of talked about in this straight. Then one of them, I'm not saying we have to hold on, but I think 1.5, considering today's economy or today's inflationary rate, is not adequate. And I applaud John for being willing to live with that. But that's going backwards, and you know, I guess I'm not sure where the rest of the body is on this, off this fine. But I feel like something a little more realistic, and I'm not sure where that number is appropriate. And honestly, at some point, hopefully very far in the future, we're gonna have to find John's replacement, and we're probably, if we keep lowballing on inflation like this, we're gonna have some sticker shock, so, if I'm alone in this, that's fine, but I think we should have a more substantial, maybe not completely what inflation is, but a little more than that.
Thank you. I like your, I agree with you. However, this is what I struggle with, I'm not putting John down the hall, but you're making more of a higher scale, say, 1.5 or say 3% or 5% of a lot more than that percent of a much less. So I think that's what John's trying to kind of. I interpret what John said, that's kind of what he's looking at, or I think. I would be more aligned with, I mean, it's still money out the door, but possibly an increase in vacation days or something, because, you cash it out, but it's still not cash immediately out the door. Kind of prefer, yes, even like that way, but, I mean, unless the body wants to do a more than 1.5%, that's in the contract, but the only more that's not gonna fight that, but because he said that he's okay with it, and because of what he said, and also be mindful of that, I would much prefer feelings in the actual week of, I don't know, I'm throwing an idea out there, I'm not set on anything. Tim?
I guess what it comes down to me is to detach the job position from the individual at this point in time and say we need to be competitive, right? So like, we need to be competitive. We need to not hold all this thing to go forward. So I'm in favor of matching inflation or even better, because I think going forward, we need to make sure that we can say this is competitive. So, but yeah, I mean, some of our place, John, let's not go down that road and say that's the only reason why we want to do that, so we don't see sticker drop down the road. But, I mean, good grief. We need to be competitive with everybody around us. And that involves more money. And we're not talking about this is ridiculous down ourselves here. Creating value for money. Let's make sure we pay what's what the quantity is.
It's an interesting note you say competitive, because last year we talked about inflation, how much it was, and the assembly did come back to a lower number, it was 3%, because 3% of a lot is. Yeah, it's also an interesting take on that. Crystal?
Just a clarifying question, so I'm not hearing numbers, I'm hearing match inflation, what do we think that is? What are we discussing now, this one time?
Hey, no way. I'm saying that we can't.
Oh, no, I'm just saying.
I think John might have some clarifying.
Yeah, John, no, I was thinking 5, but again. Yeah. Yeah, just thinking that's. It's not inflation, but it's at least in the same ballpark.
So, that's clarifying.
I do, and I appreciate, Mike's comments of, separating the position from the person. I think that's very helpful, and help me reframe this as well. Our personnel policies have built in the inflationary rates, and I believe, was here, but I think the CPI calculated for this last calendar year was 5.4, but as for that it is close to 5. And I do agree that it is important to keep the position competitive as we're doing with the the other positions, you know, we're in. You know, kicking off a compensation study to make sure we are competitive. So, you know, and obviously there's my personal concern and sensitivity here. But I understand, and again, thank you, it helped me reframe my thoughts on that one because of that.
Maybe leaving is that you'll be taken. So.
Yeah, I think, you know, we talked a lot about, we've been talking a lot about retention, right? We've been talking about being competitive as a city, so we can keep people on. Position on that same conversation, so. You're giving people 5.5%. You do that. Is it a lot of money? Yeah. What people are competitive, we need to be competitive. We're gonna say, I want to make sure we can attract and retain people, we need to live, attract and retain people. You need money.
First,
Taking the conversation because we were provided as some. But you share with them. See us as agent set on things. And so took that and it said you could go on 5%. Where are you at this point?
You nailed it. I mean, that's my personal comfort level. I'm okay. I mean, that's really the best way I know how to explain it. But I also agree with Assemblymember Pike when it's not just me sitting in this position. At some point, I won't be sitting in this position, and what tool do you have to retain the next person? And also how you can have the position for being outpaced by inflation or the at some point, you could potentially see an inversion that can lead to issues, but it's hard to separate my personal from business aspect.
So here's, so, competition, there's no problem with the piece, and it's gonna be realistic. So you're in, obviously, in the executive level, in all executive level employees see that cost of living increase no matter what, and is there a cap?
The way our existing personnel policies work, for non-represented employees, we have a pay matrix from step A through M. With good performance, employees receive a CPI, where the calculated rate is from January 1 to December 31 on the previous year. They will receive that CPI increase based on inflation, and then every other year they will receive a step increase on the matrix, which is an additional, I believe, 2.5% again with good performance. It goes up to step H and it caps there. After step H, then it becomes a discussion with me, which in turn leads to a discussion with the assembly if the budget happen. But as far as executive pay, we don't really have any design what executive, what is our executive, but the only people with that personnel policy is not applied to. And that salary is determined by this body, the attorney.
So I'm sorry, I'm just getting to a point. I'm not trying to, I just want to think clearly when you do this, before you do some of these statistics. What I'm trying to get at, sorry, I'll be trying this. By the way, you're worth money. I'm just trying to make sure that we don't set prices without thinking about what we're doing. You say department heads, is there ever a point where it says you, because you say you get $150,000 or more, and you get 5% every year, that can build up really, really quick. Is there a cap for the say department heads?
There's no cap on inflation.
We'll just keep going.
So it'll keep going up, but 150,000 1 year is now 150,000 in 10 years.
Well, so they an increase, and then next year the increase is going to be.
Only if that was calculated CPI, only if that was. Yeah.
That's very, and there's no call.
There's not, no. But,
Okay.
I can go into history again, if you like. So, I mean, last year, the assembly voted for both John and myself to have a 1.5% increase in our salary on a continual basis, so long as we get a that'll be consistent. If we didn't have that vote by the assembly, we wouldn't get that read. It's not built in the personnel policies. So you can either do one of two things. You could just get a one-time of whatever percentage you decide to do, $100. You could put the interest rate at a different rate and have it be continuing. So does that make sense?
I'm sorry. I think. So at one point in the make, and then I think it might be time for motion. For better or worse. We don't even value it. I mean, there's a reason why, you know, it may not make sense necessarily. One watch costs $50, another one costs 5,000, and I guarantee you it's not that much better. But that's how we do it. And I know John is saying, yeah, good. But we've all, without exception, said very nice things about John. And I didn't think that, I think if I made a motion to give him an excellent, isn't that what? We said evaluation, I think it would pass up to 0. I mean, even you can be the best, so. Be back and so like I said, I'm getting more comfortable with 5%. Still under impression, but it's next one. And one time, speaking of, that's the situation this year, next year. Another inflation rate seems to be coming down, so it might be 2% next year. That the inflation rate is 3%, whatever. And so, and so I move that the assembly gives John Leach an exemplary evaluation and institute a 5% salary increase.
Yeah, third question on the motion.
Are you saying this year or every year?
This year. That's what I say very specifically, this year.
Oh,
So would that be 6.5 total?
No, it'd be 5%, instead of the 1%, 1.5. 6%, 5%. 5% instead of the 1.5. And then an exemplary evaluation.
You added 300%.
Correct.
Yeah, so total of 20%. Okay.
Second.
I'll second.
Seconded to give administrative nomination exemplary review and any increase of 5% for the review for this year's review. Is there any public comment on the motion? Assembly deliberation on the motion? Crystal?
So I'm supportive of the 5%. I think what I heard is that competitive market, we're gonna lose some job other places. We got this nice document that I didn't pay enough attention to. I didn't find places around to compare their high end with what John currently makes. That was sufficient on my part. I guess they bring that up because I think it should be a system that we have built, kind of like a process to say, if we want to remain competitive, how do we stuff that we're still competitive? I think we certainly, I would go Leach and we're going in ways to say this was provided to us for a reason, and I apologize because I didn't do the calculations before I came in here. I think that would be useful, especially as we're looking forward to anyone we can justification that we did go through, and I think there are so range. That we can use to figure out, are we outpriced? Can we get the something? Part of
Yeah. I mean, with this position goes backwards essentially in terms of inflation, and I think that's where I'm concerned. So I'm not saying I don't want 4%, but I think, I think we offered, I believe the intent of the assembly was 1.5% raise on top of something value on top of, so, I mean, I guess, basically saying this position is gonna be worth less than what it would have been a year ago. And we're, I think that's where I'm concerned, and so, so what would be a better number would be 6.5%, right? So. Sorry. Because 6.5% includes that 5%, that inflation and the intent of the past, as opposed to 3.5%. So, I don't want to get hung up on the number, like the dollars amount, because we're talking about being competitive. I actually looked through that. I did math and I ballpark. But is it a ballpark, or is that where we want to be, or do we want to be more competitive? And I think, again, the position is worth more than going backwards in inflation. I hate seeing that. Whenever people don't negotiate to go backwards, they negotiate to go forward, and the minimum would be to be inflation. And the intent of the assembly in the past has been to encourage to do raise it by 1.5%. So I'm at 6.5%. I mean, I'm not going to go down 5, but on the other hand, I think, if we really want to be where we think we need to be, we really want to do what we're saying we need to do about being competitive and about retaining people, we need to speak about it in this term. We can say we're taking care of our employees, right? And we want to be able to say that, and that's where I'm at. Well, that's why I'm at 6.5%, 6.9%, and 5.4 is our inflation, because I want to see inflation grouping plus 10.
If I can get on board with what you're saying, then I go to precedent that was said earlier. Are you prepared to do that for all employees on that same level? Because that sets the precedent of where now they're already not getting that inflation plus. Are you ready to do that for all city employees?
Absolutely. And I'll tell you that because we're 15% of our workforce is not with us right now, right? So we want to be attractive and we want to be, but that's not actually part of this conversation, because this is a different kind of thing. This is two pieces of it. One is the previous assembly said 1.5% seems to be what we think would be a good increase. And we're also talking about inflation. Those are two separate conversations. And I'm in favor of both of those. So I would like to see inflation grouping minimum. And I'd like to see the intent of the previous assembly to continue a 1.5% increase so we can competitive going forward. Can we afford to do that for all the other groups? Like, that's the intent of this process.
If I could just give a why I threw that out, because that's really it. It was
Yes.
sir.
And Tim, you made actually a point also. You said that this isn't part of the conversation. It's separate conversation. So, the comments are doing that to say, I just.
It isn't. And it's time to step a lady in half, and read the room a little bit, but if you guys, I'm not wedded to that. It was just, let's get the conversation started, because we were throwing around lots of different numbers. And if someone wants to make a motion to change it, we'll see what happens. And I just want to get the conversation started.
Thank you. First of all, Tim, I want to apologize. I was like, no, the numbers were. I apologize. Again, this is no way, being jumped. So you can put in this conversation. So, okay, how about retention and all this? Even I have to, Valerie, well, and she was mentioning how there's other ways. Obviously, it's more about, it's not always about money. The point is, I'm not saying this in any way, I completely support the staff. Every penny, we would like to be on, a lot more than we do. However, I just want to bring perspective that the city of Williams is the best paid employee in town. Okay, and we have taxes that these people pay, so people are paying. You know, they're not getting, a lot of them getting into the deal, and not going to be taxed to people. And to keep this perspective in mind, I understand I'm being competitive, but we have to keep in mind what we can afford. I think it's a very, very important thing to keep in the conversation when we know what we should do is there's a lot of things that we should do. We list this what we can. That's all I'm trying to say. I just want to make a motion for increase. I'm going to vote on that. That's great. I've said my piece.
Okay.
Julie, and so I have the first acknowledge that we can do this in the executive session where we discuss salary. So it's like feeling comfortable to advocate and actually be John did request that we do this publicly, and so that might make it a little bit more difficult for him. And we asked him about 1.5%. He's now speaking to people who are listening to the meeting live, which can be difficult to do. But the expectation is that a body of supervisors were having a discussion with the employee to kind of ask where is he at with respect to the number that's out there. So if I'm struggling, it's because I heard 1.5 seems doable. Again, I'm supportive of the job that he's done this last year, and I want to support him as much. But if I hear 1.5% is sufficient, and then we take that up to 5%, I'm feeling like as he outlined. Again, me acknowledging that this is all publicly being recorded and that maybe that's a position, but it's not that it wasn't the request of John that we do this publicly. So I'm struggling because I heard that 1.5 and then you raised it up to 5%, and he's very cognizant of what his employees are receiving. He was also able to look and see that it is within the market throughout Alaska anyways. So I'm having a lot of thoughts. I'm not stuck on the number, but I think that I support 5% for the reasons that it was.
Yeah, they're JD.
It is a choice. Well, that's here. Yeah. In other positions, sure. Yeah. What you're gonna me, like I want a job. I don't directly said control with he's okay. He's okay. He's not good. He's okay. If we feel he's better at his job and okay, increase it to a degree that we think is helping us. In fact, to more considering all the people, it's a hard value acquisition. Factors. Vacation, we still can talk about other things that can compensate. As an employee without a clock in time, you get the benefit of half day Fridays, something like that, but there are other ways to look at compensation. Yes.
Chris?
So, as most of you know, I serve on a couple other boards, and this year, we did do some inflation for our employee salaries. And I did get to see what it did. It definitely raised it rather substantially. But I do believe in it. I do believe in inflation proofing, and we should. but this is the people's money, that we're spending here. And most of us aren't being inflation. There are plenty of us that aren't having their salaries. Mine's going down. So it's kind of, I do have to look into it, I guess, and, but, you know, I definitely for John on the exemplary extension. And I think he should be compensated better than 1.5%. I can probably be convinced to go higher than 5, but I do feel 5. I do want to happen. I have been very impressed and really happy with the work that he's done. But I do want to be cautious that I don't get too crazy with the people's money. So yeah, right now I'm good with 5 and be open minded for other options, I guess.
So what if we just inflation with that, right? Like do that. Whatever that number is, like 4 or
Yeah, you do.
But I motion to increase the administrator's salary for the CPI. So that would be an amendment to the next. So there's on the floor, there's an amendment to the motion to stay wage by CDU. That's moved and seconded to amend the motion to increase the pay rate by CDU. Back to the assembly for deliberation. Does anyone have CDU off the top of their head?
CPI and review, I can't. Thanks for that.
This one. So is that this year or permanently?
This year.
Okay.
CPIU is the consumer price index for urban consumers, and ours is based off of the figures.
Yeah, that figure. We're able to find it.
I don't have.
So that gives you assembly a ballpark.
And I'll just tell you that when we put the budget together, that was applied to every one of the non-represented positions and just for budgetary purposes. Thought included, that we adjusted it.
According to Google. It's 5%.
Is that for Anchorage?
Yeah, it's 5%. I mean, and it's a percentage, not, I mean, I don't think that it makes a lot of difference where you are, it's more expensive than Anchorage. Percentage is the same.
CPIU doesn't adjust for where you.
I mean, you just. What it's worth, say. You can probably. But yeah.
So it sounds as if it's a safe assumption, it's in the range of 5.4.
Sarah, question, what is the adjustment?
Okay, well, the amendment, to increase the salary to CPIU, or the percentage is to increase the CPIU, and then the main motion is to get, John an exemplary, and institute a 100% salary increase. So the primary.
So we don't CPIE list because we don't have a list here, so we're not walking away knowing that.
Correct.
I don't know if I'm comfortable with that.
Or,
Yeah, I just didn't hear your first.
speak for you.
Oh, I was just saying that I'm uncomfortable not knowing what that percentage is tonight, so I would go back to the percentage because we're all pulling in our buckets and not. They will come up with me. Maybe close enough.
The last problem period, it's,
And that's what I thought I was gonna go off of, but I think researching is it's really comfortable.
yeah, the government. Spreadsheet.
And not. So. For it's.
Okay, so the amendment. We increase. To approve a salary increase.
Is the motion or second? CD. Yeah.
Yeah.
So. Anything else in 5.4% increase? Sorry.
Increase. Salary increase of workers, Ms. Navin,
Yes.
Mr. Christensen,
Yes.
Mr. Pike,
Yes.
Mr. Morgan. Ms. Carlson,
Yes.
Mayor Isekai,
Yes.
Mr. Yeda.
Yes.
The amendment happens.
Or back to the main motion as amended, to give John or municipal administrator an exemplary review, increase of pay of 5.4%. Any further revision? Sarah, if I didn't have that motion right, I just wanted to over. Definitely, but if you need to correct me on that, please do.
No, you are correct. Good John, makes it clear eval and increase of. Mr. Pike,
Yeah.
Ms. Carlson.
Yes.
Ms. Duncan.
Yes.
Mr. Moser,
Yes.
Mr. Yesta,
Yes.
Mr. Christensen.
Yes.
The Mayor.
Yes.
Motion passes 7-0.
Thank you for your time on that.